And
Hello and welcome to AGK Media. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Younis. Stick with us a couple of seconds, and we are going to share with you the 7 clues that we discovered in our Rio Chama theory. There we go. Hey, Miss Shelley, how are you doing today?
I'm super. How are you?
I'm good. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since the party.
Since the party.
Yeah.
Good party, though, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a great party.
Yeah.
We had a housewarming party. We invited family and friends. And it was so good, we never got around to playing Trivial Pursuits. That's how good it was.
And we have to have another one soon.
Yeah. We got a poker party coming up here soon. I've got to do a poker party. As I said in our intro, we are going to talk about our Rio Chama solve. As a matter of fact, the picture behind us, is a picture of me made by my son Jason, taking pictures at the Rio Chama. And we're going to describe to you how we arrived at the 7 clues in what was our first solution. And I'm using the "our" in a royal way because Shelley hadn't joined the search at this time. When I say we, I'm talking about my son Jason and I, because he was my search partner when this all started. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to explain to you how we got there. But Shelley has heard this so many times, she kind of, knows it better than anyone. So I need to make a quick change over to this picture there. Okay.
Do we have any housekeeping first?
We do have a little bit of housekeeping.
Housekeeping, you want towels?
I do want towels. And don't forget to like this video. My thumb is repairing nicely, although I'm going to have a beautiful scar there. Nice scar.
Another knife fight. Another knife fight.
Yeah, another knife fight. So I have to tell you, I have a scar on my arm over here. And one time my grandson, Phoenix, when he was younger than he is now, asked me, "What's that from?" And I looked at him, I said, "Knife fight." And he said, "What happened to the other guy?" Which, that was a great question. Let's see. Michael S. I guess we can let that one go, Michael S. I don't know why they blocked it. But I did find out.
Thumbs up.
I did find out from Sean that he got honorable mention in the science fair, the state science fair. He was not 4th, but did get honorable mention, which I thought was pretty good for for his first science fair.
Yeah.
And for statewide. So housekeeping.
Going to state is a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Housekeeping, make sure you like this video. YouTube likes it when you like our videos. Make sure that you take the opportunity to share this video with your family, friends, neighbors, business associates, and social networks so that we can
Grow. It takes water to grow.
Grow. It'll like water. And then finally, if you're not already a subscriber, this would be a good time to subscribe. And once you click on that subscribe button, you get the opportunity to click on the notifications bell. That's important. Click on that bell, and that way, whenever we schedule a live stream or whenever we start a live stream, you will be immediately informed and feel, of course, like you are in
the know.
The know.
And Toby isn't wearing a tie today because he has an appointment right after this. So.
Oh, did they mention? Yeah.
He will wear one tonight.
Yeah,
sure.
I will have a tie. I've got a VA appointment right after this show. Oh, not right after. It's an hour after, but it's going to take me about an hour to get down there, and I'm not going to have time to change. So forgive me for that. Without a necktie, there's nothing. Don't read anything else into it. It's not a clue. Okay, so what we want to talk about is we promised you that on Wednesdays from now on we're going to talk more. We're going to talk about our solutions and how we got there. And in order to do that, I have to swap out of this screen and swap into another one so I can show you what I'm talking about. This was the solution that I concocted. It was the first solution I concocted after picking up the book. Because I bought the book sometime around August 2013. And this solution was implemented sometime between the end of October and the beginning of November, before the snows hadn't started. It was a really warm autumn that year. And it was my first solution. I'm going to explain to it. And to me, sometimes it still seems like one of my better solutions. one of the better solutions that I have come up with, and you can take a look at it. Once I've finished describing the solution, I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'll try to open up the phone lines, and we'll keep the phone lines open until 2:00, so that if you have additional questions about the solution, I can answer them.
And yes,
for
Charles,
you.
it is a theory. It's not a solution because
Sorry.
we didn't find the treasure.
Right. If it was
You
a
are
solution,
correct.
we would have found the treasure. This is the Rio Chama theory. I have posted a link to the photo set from this particular Boots on the Ground in the description box below. So if you want to look at the photos that Jason and I collected, you're welcome to do that. And the other thing that I didn't get a chance this weekend, as I promised, to reset up the photo page. But if you go to agypsieskiss.com and in the search box you say photo space album, because they all have that label on them, it'll show you all the photo albums that we've shot in the past. And there's, 25, 26 of them, a bunch of them. Okay, so our Rio Chama solve was based upon
Theory.
the Rio Chama theory. God, I just said solve.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's bad. I didn't mean solve. I take that back. Our Rio Chama theory was based upon several things. And it was based upon the idea that if the first clues begin at where warm waters halt, you have to have some sense of where to start that, where warm waters halt. And what drove me to that point, I'm going to switch over to another screen. You're not going to see us, you're going to hear us, but you're going to hear screen so that I can explain this, okay? So let me switch over to that right now. Okay, what you're looking at is my typewritten copy of The Thrill of the Chase. I had this done. I had a woman who did word processing copy it so that I could make it searchable. What got me to Rio Chama was I read the book, then I read the poem, and I went back, like Fenn suggested, and read the book. And there were several things that stuck out to me, what Fenn refers to as aberrations around the edges. One of the things that stuck out to me was John Charles, the big bully at his school that used to wave the jar of olives at him, and he'd wave it, and that just stuck out to us like a sore thumb to me. I thought it was just, why that story, Then the second thing that stuck out to me was the comment about Gardner Island after he talked the poem Captain Kidd and maps and things like that. But there was one thing that really stuck out to me, and that was his relationship with one of his teachers, whose name was Miss Ford, who taught Spanish. And the first thing that stuck out, this was in the early 1940s, and I thought, you're in Temple, Texas, you're in junior high school. What are the chances that they were actually teaching Spanish in a junior high school in Temple, Texas in the early 1940s? And I thought, well, there could have been a good chance of that, but why? Why Spanish? There was no reason. We didn't have the number of immigrants we do. We didn't have the issues associated with the southern border, but I thought it was interesting. But what was even more interesting to me is, and I'm gonna just read the stats to you. Miss Ford is mentioned. The phrase Miss Ford is mentioned 11 times between pages 28 and 45 in 3 different chapters. He actually uses the phrase Miss Ford in those 3 chapters more often than he uses the phrase my mother in the entire book. He uses the phrase my mother in the entire book 9 times. He mentions my father, quote the phrase my father, 45 times, and my brother 6 times. So Miss Ford is mentioned in C2 more often than my mother and my brother. In addition to that, the 3 chapters that she's mentioned in is, the first chapter is Jump-Starting the Learning Curve. Jump-starting, maybe an indication that's where I should start off. And I'm not claiming that any of this is true. I'm just telling you how I got to that point, okay? And that's what we promised we do. I'm not gonna say this is all right, that the 7 clues that we're gonna share with you today are right, but I'm saying this is how I got to the Rio Chama. She's also mentioned in Spanish Toy Factory, and he mentions her right at the beginning of In Love with Yellowstone, which I thought was kind of funny that he wanted to talk about Yellowstone, but Miss Ford manages to work her way into that chapter. So the reason it was interesting to me and how I ended up there was that ford in Spanish is Vato. And there, anybody who's looked at a New Mexico map knows there's a reservoir that up just west of Chama called El Vato Reservoir. And the reason it's called El Vato is before it came a reservoir, before the Chama was dammed at that point, it was the place at which explorers and travelers would cross the Chama River, the ford, because it was at low waters. The Chama was very wide at that point, and it went down into a valley, small valley.
Show the map.
And then back up. I'm going to in just a sec. So it was it was referred to as El Vato, the ford, and so Spanish ford. That's how I got El Vato. Okay, so I'm going to show you a map. These are the maps I use. This is Onyx Maps. I bought an annual subscription. I think it's around $99. If you mention my name, if you mention a Gypsy's Kiss, you will not get a discount because they don't know who the heck we are. So let me scroll back just a little bit so I can give you some of these details. So that is the area around El Vato Reservoir. Right there where the cross is and where my cursor is pointing is the dam itself. This area right around here that's in the light orange is the Jicarilla Apache Reservation. This area down here is the yellow is BLM land. The green land is either state property. In this case, it's right here. That's the Rio Chama Wildlife Management Area. And I'll explain why there's a wildlife management area there. And then down here is part of the Carson National Forest. Okay, so those are all the areas around there. The area that isn't colored is private, and sometimes it's part of a big land grant that's been broken up and sold. One of the things that you can see, let me open those up. One of the things that you can see is the various map layers, and I'll just show you this for a second. So if I click on that button that says New Mexico Private Lands, it starts showing you how those lands are parceled out. Okay, but we don't need to do that. Those are all those land grant areas and parts of that land grant that have already been sold. Okay, so I'm going to take those back out and I'm going to zoom into the map just a little bit further. What was important about this was the fact that there was this stretch of land right along here, along the reservoir and down into the Chama River that was identified by the state as the Rio Chama Wildlife Management Area. And the reason that it's important is they acquired that land specifically to give the state some sort of buffer on the water against the and I don't mean against, that's probably along the reservation. The reservation doesn't have access to the water. As a matter of fact, if you look at the reservoir up here, you'll see that there's a lot of private property against the water. There's points up here where the reservation is close to the water, but not on it. So I think my opinion is that this is one of the ways that the state and probably via the BLM used this buffer as a way to make sure that people had access to the river along that area. Without having to deal with whether or not you were on tribal property. So you're not on tribal property on that side of the river. So El Vato Dam, so at that point, it is no longer true. It was changed. But in 2009, 2010, the New Mexico State Fishing Regulations said that there were special trout waters that began at the bottom of El Vato Dam and went down the canyon. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom in even further to this. So you can see right here is where the special trout waters start, right there. And the reason is up until that point, this area up to there is owned by the El Vato Dam management people, whoever that is. The Rio Chama becomes public right there, and it goes downstream. So we're taking the canyon down until we get to, and again, this is how, I need to zoom this out just a little bit. Let's see. So this actually looks like a long distance. It's not. It's less than a mile. Did I go too far? I'm looking for Cooper's Wrench.
I think you have to zoom in to see it.
Okay, so I know it's past the horseshoe. So all of this is less than a mile that I'm dragging you down El Chama River. And eventually you get to a location. Let me see. Scrolling. There's the big horseshoe right there. So there's this big horseshoe. And then I think I went too far. Hold on. Yeah, because it's above Nutrius. So it's right about here. I'm going to scroll in, and you're going to see a bunch of activity, right? And that activity is called Cooper's Ranch. It's private property, but these here, they have parking for trailers and campers along here, and these are cabins that you can rent at Cooper's Ranch, right along the river here. This spot right there, that place right in the middle, I'll put it right in the middle for you, is the Cooper's Ranch store. And you can buy, sodas, candy, snacks, beer, etc., etc. But that store has a fish that's been mounted. And underneath the fish, it says, largest brown trout caught in the state of New Mexico. And the website, and when you did a search for Home of Brown back in 2013, the Home of Brown came up, their website came up because their website was entitled A Home of the New Mexico Record Brown Trout. Okay? And it's mounted on the wall there. What's even more interesting is right there on the river is where is the put-in for all the Rio Chama rafting companies. That's where they start they pay Cooper's Ranch to be able to use it, but they start their raft trips there, right at Cooper's Ranch, and that's called the put-in. So it's the put-in below the Home of Brown, right? So now we have Begin at Where Warm Waters Halt, which is at the bottom of the dam, and I'll explain that in just a moment as well, because you're gonna cite the thing that Fenn said. It's not associated with the dam. I'm going to explain that to you because that's another one of Fenn's counterintelligence points. Then we have to go looking for no place for the meek. Well, if you look upstream from that point, because I only have to go as far as down the canyon as the put-in below the Home of Brown. So where am I right now? Begin at Where Warm Waters Halt. Take it in the canyon down. Not far, but too far to walk. Put in below the Home of Brown. So I've got the first few clues. Number 5 is there's no place. From there, it's no place for the meek. Okay, so let me just close this. If you look upstream from this location, what you're going to see is this line across the river on your map. Now I can't zoom in any further, but that happens to be a suspension bridge that enables you to cross over the river, over the suspension bridge, and this is what that suspension bridge looks like. No place for the meek. The year that Jason and I went, they had closed this for a couple of reasons. You can see how close to the water it is. At high water, what happens is trees were ripped up and they damaged the suspension bridge, so that they had closed the suspension bridge for repairs. And so we couldn't get across that point. Now, at this point, we had to stop our search and try to figure out another way to get to the other side of the river. The only way across to the other side of the river was through the Jicarilla Apache Reservation, which happens to be through a forest road. We couldn't get past that forest road. It was literally just a mud bog. But anyway, this was our no place for the meek. Let me go back to the map. So once you're no place for the meek, now this is a lot more wooded as usual. It looks like it's wide open territory. It's not. It's a lot more wooded than you imagine. The end is ever drawing nigh. We interpreted it at that point as nigh to make a left turn. That means we were going back downstream. One of the things that happened soon after that was I recorded the Moby-Dick video. And if you go through that video, if you listen to that video, there's a woman that asks Fenn, if you follow the poem, and I'm going to have to paraphrase, you're going to have to go back to the video and look for it. If you follow the poem correctly, do you have to do any backtracking? And Fenn avoids answering that question. And he avoids it in a way that implies there must be some backtracking. Otherwise, he could have said no. He didn't say no. He didn't say yes. He just said, he kind of brushed it off like he does, and he says, "Oh, you're dangerous. I know you, little girl. You're dangerous." To him, everybody's a little girl. So we're going to cross No Place for the Meek, and we're going to, from the end is ever drawing nigh, we're going to do a left turn. Well, if you do a left turn down the river at this point, and I'm going to zoom this back out just enough so you can see the color. So you are walking along a part of the river that belongs to the Rio Chama Wildlife Management Area. It's a state area that was acquired from the Bureau of Land Management. It has restrictions, but the restrictions are based on hunting, hiking, taking pictures, etc., etc. It's actually, if you go further downriver, there's another one that's called the Rio Chama Wildlife, or Wild, I have to go down. But it's the part that's owned by the Bureau of Land Management. They did it. So they gave this part to the state of New Mexico, and the state of New Mexico called it the Wildlife Management Area. I've been there several times. There ain't a whole bunch of wildlife there. So it's just to protect them, because this side, and I'll zoom back out again, this side is the Hickory Apache Reservation. So you've got this, that's public lands right down here, and then the public lands cross over to the other side of the river. And that's where the Rio Chama Wildlife Management Area continues, all the way up the Rio Nutrias, okay? So you're on public lands on that side of the river, even though about 300 yards from the river, in this case, there's the Hickory Apache Reservation. Our theory about the people that had been within 500 feet of the treasure was that the people had been rafting down the Rio Chama. They had no interest in the treasure. They had been rafting down the Rio Chama, and that's how they got within 500 feet of the treasure. So if you walk down this Rio Chama Wildlife Area to right about there, and I'll zoom that in just a second, it's less than, let's see, so it's around 300 yards, so it's around 900 feet to that area from the bridge crossing. So you're not walking an entire mile. What you'll find there is a dry creek bed that occasionally had water in it when it rains really, really hard. Now, again, this looks like it's very sparsely populated with trees, but it's far more populated than you might think. What's even more interesting is you can't get to it from this side of the river, because let me turn on the topographics. I'm going to do a hybrid, because this area on the other side of the river is very steep. And as you can see from this plateau right here, it gets pretty steep down in this area. But there's a bunch of places to hide the treasure in that area. So now what we have is begin at where warm waters halt. Take it in the canyon down, not far, but too far to walk, put in below the home of Brown. From there, it's no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek. The other two, the heavy lows and waters high, we never could figure out from this area, but we didn't spend enough time there. And then the blaze. My guess is, well, our assumption was, in this particular theory, that the blaze is someplace in that dry riverbed on public lands on the Rio Chama. So those are how we got to the first 7 clues in our Rio Chama solve. Now, soon after that, in May of 2014, Dale Neitzel published Scrapbook 68. And this turned me off. It turned me off for a variety of reasons. It shut down several of my theories at the time because I didn't read it well. And I'm going to suggest you read it as well as I have since, okay? So let me read exactly what Fenn said, because this is the citation that everybody refers to when they say it's not associated with a dam. I'm going to explain how that's a mischaracterization and probably a bit of counterintelligence. So I had done my search in 2013, October, November 2013. I published a blog post soon after that about it, saying that's how I had gotten to that point. Then in May 2014, and this is not confirmation bias, I'm not trying to imply that Fenn said anything related to my theory. But he did say, and these are Fenn's words as documented in Dale Neitzel's scrapbook number 68. You can find it. May 2014, many searchers have thought that warm waters halt at a dam because water being released through the flues near the bottom of the dam is much colder than the water on the surface of the lake. I have discussed around that subject with several people in the last few days and am concerned that not all searchers are aware of what has been said. So to level the playing field, to give everyone an equal chance, I will say now that warm waters halt is not related to a dam. And Dale, no, it's not Dal. His name is Dale Neitzel. Trust me. I've spoken with the man. I've had this conversation with the man. It's Dale. I know it looks like Dale. It's Dale Neitzel. And if you don't believe me, go back to the interview that I did with him back in 2014 or so, and he'll explain it to you then, right? So what's interesting about this theory is that everybody got away from the dams. And because two of my warm waters halting in the New Mexico Game and Fish regulations came out of a dam, that's what I concluded. I said, ugh, that blows the Rio Chama theory, that blows the Cimarron theory. But I went back to this, and if you read it carefully, that's not what he says. He's very clear about what he's saying. He says that warm waters halt at a dam because water being released through the flues at the bottom of the dam is much colder than the water on the surface of the lake. And that is absolutely true. That's a fact. That's how it always happens. The water in the lake gets to a temperature that supports warm water fishes when it's released down at the bottom because cold water settles. The dam always lets the water out at the bottom. It comes out at a much lower temperature for trout species, better for trout species. But that has nothing to do with my definition of warm waters halt. If I used the definition, if I used what Fenn states there, that the difference in water temperature between the surface of the water in the reservoir and the water being released from the flues is my definition of where warm waters halt, he would be absolutely correct and I would be wrong. But it's not. My definition of warm waters halting has to do with the New Mexico Game and Fish regulations. And coincidentally, and for no other reason, coincidentally, trout waters begin on the Rio Chama just below the dam, but it doesn't have anything to do with a definition of the differences in temperature, which is what Fenn cites here. He cites the difference in temperature between the surface of the reservoir, the surface water on the reservoir, versus the temperature of the water being released from the flues down below. My definition of warm waters halt has nothing to do with that. My definition of warm waters halt still has to do with the New Mexico State Game and Fish regulations. So you can say that the definition, according to Fenn, that warm waters halt have nothing, that according to Fenn, warm waters halting have nothing to do with the dam. That's absolutely correct. They don't. They don't have anything to do with the water temperature differences at a dam. They have to do with the New Mexico State fishing regulations. And coincidentally, trout waters, special trout waters, begin about 100 feet from where that lower than where the dam releases its water. So whenever somebody tells you, Fenn said that it's not associated with a dam, correct them and say he did, as long as your definition of warm waters has to do with the difference in temperatures between the surface water in the reservoir and the water being released at the dam below. That's absolutely correct. It's another one of those Fenn things that when he says it is absolutely correct. But it doesn't make any difference if your definition for warm waters is the New Mexico State fishing regulations. Okay? So those are how we came to the first 7 clues in, Jan, I'm going to address that. Trout waters can't be think geological stuff. No, and the reason is if you're going to search for a treasure 100 years from now, You're not going to look at regulations, fishing regulations, if there aren't any from 100 years from now. You're going to go back and look at the fishing regulations when the treasure was hidden. And that's true for all of these clues. Now, there are some, I believe, that have to have a geological component. But I think it's a mistake when you say, well, fishing regulations aren't going to be here in 100 years. And the reason I think it's a mistake is because anybody who goes looking for any treasure goes back to the time period. If you're looking for a Spanish treasure that went down in a galleon back in the 1700s, you're not going to look at ship records today. You're going to go back to the records that were kept in Colombia or Uruguay or one of the other South American countries, and the records kept by the Spanish as to what those activities were and the names of ships there. You're going to go back and do research in that period. You're going to look at that period because 100 years from now, none of these clues may exist in reality. They could have been disturbed. They could have been destroyed. So you're not going to go back and look at maps that are published 100 years from now. You're going to go back and look at the maps or the rules or the physical characteristics of the area as it was at the time that Fenn hid the treasure.
You gonna go back to us?
Yeah, let's go back to us.
Davio's asking twice. He's asked, what is your reason for staying in New Mexico? Something about being close to home? Staying in New Mexico. Well, if we were still searching, we would still search in New Mexico. And the reason is, Toby and I talked about this. There is no exact temperature that is warm waters. There's hot, there's cold, there's ice, there's steam, there's lukewarm, there's tepid, there's tap water, there's everything that you can think of to describe water, but there's no exact definition of warm waters. There is an exact definition, however, if you look at the fishing regulations. That is the only exact definition of warm waters, plural, that came up when Toby was searching it in 2013 on Google. So it makes the most sense. It is the easiest, simplest, as Fenn has told us many, many times. Simplify, keep it simple, 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 simple. This is the simplest solution theory that we could come up with.
In addition to that, in the book, I've said this probably 100 times before, if I go to the book, did I leave the book up? Yeah. And I do a search for oops. If I do a search for Santa Fe, there's a couple of entries, gallery in Santa Fe. On page 134 of the book, just before he talks about the poem, Fenn says, it's in the mountains somewhere north of Santa Fe. And this was written in 2009, 2010. He published it in 2010. He published 1,000 copies. He put them all in the Collected Works bookstore. That doesn't sound to me like a man who's telling you to go look up in Colorado, Wyoming, or Montana. He says it's in the mountains north of Santa Fe. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until 2013 with the publishing of The Thrill of the Too Far to Walk that the Rocky Mountains came up. Fenn has, and I'll repeat this, I'm sorry to repeat this again and again, but it seems it comes up more often. Fenn has never said you can find the treasure in one of 4 states, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, or Montana. He just says it's in the Rocky Mountains. The mountains north of Santa Fe are the Rocky Mountains. So how do I...
Davio says, if warm water stops, then cool water starts. That is simple. No, that is an assumption.
Yeah.
He says warm water halts. He never ever says anything about and cool water starts or special trout water start or anything else starts. He only says warm water halts. That's it. Everything else is an assumption.
Now, here's an interesting point that Jan mentioned before. He said something about, well, it's not going to be there in 100 years. The New Mexico Game and Fish regulations have actually changed since 2009, 2010. 2010, the warm waters halted at about 100 feet below the dam. Now they're much further down the river at the gauging station. So between 2009 and 2018, the definition, the location of those warm waters has halted. So if you're looking at the 2018 fishing regulations for warm waters, you're going to be off by about 150 yards.
Missouri Dave says, I get more hung up on why a place would be special to Mr. Fenn. What would you say was in this area to meet that? We have no idea because we don't know what is special to Fenn other than his memories and his family. We don't know what could have happened in this area. Maybe he knew somebody at Cooper's Ranch. Maybe he liked fishing in that area. Maybe he liked rafting. Who knows?
Maybe he caught the New Mexico record brown trout.
So, unless you can say exactly what is special to a person, and probably, I mean, I couldn't even tell you that about most anybody, even my husband or my children. I couldn't tell you what was most special to them. They would have to tell you themselves.
Okay, phone lines are open. We got about 25 minutes. If you want to call and tell me why my solution was wrong, I'd be happy to listen to you and debate the point. So call us, 866-597-9901. That's 866-597-9901, and let's see what you got. By the way, if you want us to see your comment in the chat room, make sure you precede your comment, if you have a question, with AGK Space Media so that it'll highlight it for us so that we can see it. Otherwise, it just goes screaming by.
All right, so if we've missed anything, AGK Space Media.
And if you want to be added to Shelley's list, we had a couple over the weekend. If you wanted to be added to Shelley's list of people who are going to find the treasure this summer, let us know. Again, preceded with AGK Media.
Your name and what month you're going to find it.
All right, we got a phone call. Let's see who's calling. So you've reached Shelley and Toby. Who's calling? Where are you calling from? And what's your question?
Yeah, my name is Mike Money. I'm actually in the chat room. I'm calling from Pennsylvania.
Hey, Mike.
And my question was, what would you describe as the blaze?
We honestly, we have no, which is why we haven't been able to find the treasure yet. We don't have a good sense of what the blaze is. We feel like the blaze has some geologic component in it because it's the one that's closest to the treasure. So it has to be the one that's the least immutable. So that likely indicates some sort of geologic thing. And it could include petroglyphs or pictographs, which do have, in some cases, a long life. And in this area that we were looking at, since it's so close to the Hickory Apache Reservation, and they were known to be great makers of not petroglyphs, but pictographs, we thought maybe there was something there that indicated it. But we believe there's some geologic component to the blaze. We don't have an exact, one of the reasons we gave up is we don't have an exact idea of what the blaze looks like. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Okay, I understand. Yeah, completely. I did hear somebody say it could be an ice patch, which would describe if you are brave, your efforts will be worth the cold. Mm-hmm. So that could be something. Because I feel like the 9 clues are beginning with warm water's halt, take it in the canyon down, not far, but too far to walk. That's number 2. Mm-hmm. Put in below the home of Brown's number 3. From there, it's no place for the meek. The end is ever dwelling nigh. That's number 4. There'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. That's number 5. If you've been wise and found the blaze, that's number 6. Look quickly down your quest to seize is number 7. Mm-hmm. Your efforts will be worth the cold is number 8. And if you're braving in the wood, I give you title to the gold. It's number 9.
Nice. So you've actually spread the clues over the last 5 stanzas of the treasure poem. It sounds
yes.
like. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Well,
because,
good.
I do believe that in the clue, from there's no place for the meek, the end is ever dwelling nigh. Mm-hmm. That's a 2-part clue because it's telling you the end is ever dwelling left.
Yeah.
And then there'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. There's nothing up there other than just water and heavy loads.
Well, again, I like your strategy for the clues. It sounds like you've got a good sense of when are you coming all the way from Pennsylvania out to the Rocky Mountains to search?
I did twice. I've been to Colorado twice because
nice.
I do believe that put in below the home of Brown is Brown's Canyon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we did that.
Because the reason I do believe that is because he says, and take it in the canyon down. Now, if you're looking for a specific canyon, he does say put him below the home of Brown, which Brown and Canyon are in the same kind of frame.
Right. Yeah, well, we'll be talking about that because we
with.
have been to Brown Canyon, that area along the Arkansas River, and we'll give you a sense. We'll share that solution with you on one of the upcoming Wednesday afternoon shows. Okay?
Okay, I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Bye now.
So
Phone lines are
John
open.
Sterling Anderson says, but what about the statement, there are many where warm waters halt in the Rockies, some below Santa Fe? Wouldn't that statement mean that it is not fishing regs?
I don't recall that he said some below Santa Fe.
I think so. I think people were questioning him, and that's what he'd said.
Yeah.
But,
So
doesn't necessarily mean that, you know.
If you use the
He's
New Mexico
giving you
fishing
his
regulations,
definition.
if you use the New Mexico fishing regulations, he's accurate in that there are many that are north of Santa Fe, and there are a couple that are south of Santa Fe.
Yeah, warm waters. Sure.
Right. If you use the fishing regulations, because there are rivers that are south of Santa Fe that have special trout waters on them. They're up in the mountains in the Gila, et cetera, but there are those. What he said, though, is that the treasure is in the mountains north of Santa Fe, not south of Santa Fe.
Sure. And he didn't define where warm waters halt with that statement. So you can imagine whatever you want as to where it's located. It's still not defined.
Phone lines are open. If you want to make a call and you have a question, bring it on.
All right. So
You got any other questions in the chat room? I haven't been following.
Tony Driver wants to know if we're excited to get there. We're not looking anymore.
We're not looking anymore.
That's why we're
Tony.
sharing all of our theories with you. We're not looking anymore anyway. What I think the blaze is, I think what Toby said, it's a geological formation of some sort, and you're not going to know exactly what it is until you get there. If it were possible to know in advance, then the people who had figured out the first two clues and walked right on by it would have not walked right on by it. They would have said, oh, well, there's the blaze, duh, and it must be right there. So I think it's going to be difficult to figure that one out.
Yeah, because I think there's some left to there's a bit left to interpreting the metaphor of the blaze once you're there.
So we have people saying that Montana is Spanish for mountains, so that must be Montana. It's in the mountains north of Santa Fe.
Well, Montana is a single mountain, not mountains. But yeah, I guess you could make that. I guess you could work with that. Not suggesting that can't be true. Okay, let me see what I got here.
And again, the reason Toby picked fishing regulations is because he Googled it back in 2013, and it was the first thing that came up, which made it very simple.
Hey, you've reached Toby and Shelley. Where are you calling from? What's your name? And what's your question? Hello.
They're turning down their
Can you
computer
turn in the
video
thing?
audio.
Can you hear us?
Hello.
Oh, you know what? They're listening to their audio on the computer.
Oh.
Okay, 715. We're going to hang up so that you can figure this out and then call us back, okay? Thanks. I haven't quite figured out.
No,
there.
it's not George. George knows how to do this. Somebody asked if it was George.
No, we have some voicemails from George that we're going to play tonight. All right, 715's got it figured out. Let's see.
All right. Hello.
Hey, you've reached, whoops, let me make sure, let me go to the call. Yeah, you've reached Shelley and Toby. What's your name, where are you calling from, and what's your question?
Yes, this is 715.
Hey, 715, what's your name?
From Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Just a couple of comments. They were talking about where the warm waters halt.
Yes, sir.
And I guess my thoughts on that are Oh, when he told the school kids, touch this brass statue, and it felt cold to him. Or when he told people, did you stick your toe in the water? It's got, with the warm water's halt, when it drops below body temperature, I guess is one of my thoughts here. And I guess I was curious as what they thought about that.
Oh, well, you can ask the room.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Again, what we have to deal with is the precision or the exactitude of where warm waters halt. If you're searching for a difference in temperature, then you're going to end up in a debate about what the definition of warm is. He didn't say warm. He said put in below the home of something warm. He said, I'm sorry, not put in below, but begin at where something warm starts. Right, yeah, he said warm waters. And warm waters has a very specific definition. You don't have to debate it. You can go to the New Mexico fishing regulations, and you can get with GPS locations.
Exactly what he said, yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I guess my thoughts were that if you're wading down the creek, your body is going to tell you when it goes from warm to cold, or when the warm quits, stops, when the cold starts. Your body temperature tells you that.
Mm-hmm. So
when you touch that statue, it's going to feel cold because
right.
It's at room temperature. Your body is warmer than that.
Agreed. I don't disagree with that. But what you're suggesting is that if you walk down the creek, meaning you're in the creek, walking, and you're waiting for some indication of where the temperature in the water changes as, I guess, a result of, say, a hot springs adding to the creek?
Or it just warms naturally. When the flow changes, as it fast flow, it'd be colder. If it's a slow flow, it'll be warmer. The water temperature changes on its own.
It does.
It doesn't have to be hot springs or warm springs. Or it'll change temperature, sunshine to shade.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's true. Moving water, I think that might be true for still water. I'm not sure it's quite as true that there's a dramatic change, something that you could tell with the change against your skin. You know, if you could describe the difference on your skin between the temperatures, because I've spent, a lot of us, when we go fishing, will forego the waders, and we'll just go in with our, I have a pair of hiking boots that are waterproof and very, amenable to the idea of walking in the water. And they're also safer for me because they have a nice grip on the bottom. And I've never had a sense of changing temperatures in the water as I'm walking and fishing, but it's certainly something to consider. I can't debate the point just because I don't have any data that says otherwise.
Well, it's just one of my thoughts. Again, it kind of relates to that statue story he told of the kids who touched this bronze statue. And have you ever thought about or considered just a thought? All the second chances Fenn has had in his life, and then the prefix of too far to throw the chase, rather. If the readers over the age of 12, what did he say? Didn't see a little of themselves, maybe they deserve a second chance. I think in the poem he gives a second chance. The way I read it, I can't explain it any better than that. He gives you a series of clues, and then the poem kind of wraps up going peace, but then there's another series of clues. The way I understand it, I don't know. Does that make
Well, it makes sense when you say it. I can't say, again, I haven't done the research to determine whether or not I've looked at the poem in a lot of different ways. I've never looked at it in that way, but it's certainly a thought, and I'll take the opportunity to do that.
And one more, just a thought.
Okay.
I look at the poem as a big funnel, wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. Everybody gets so hung up on picking the correct warm waters halt. As an example, if you're in Yellowstone, there's many warm waters, hot waters, whatever people are picking up there, but yet they might all be in the same line. With that thought in mind, if you start somewhere in Yellowstone and go take it down the canyon, the search gets narrower and narrower and narrower until you get to his hiding spot. Like you said, you're looking in a big area, but just for a small object, small place. I can't quote that exactly.
No. I remember him saying that. The thing that there's two things about that, and we talked about this last week. What you're citing as possible is that you can find one of the warm waters halt, and then you're closer to the canyon down, right? Which is what he said the little girl in India could see on a map. The problem is there's no way to confirm, and Fenn has agreed with this. He said you won't know if your warm waters halt was the correct one until you find the treasure. So I used to think of it as a funnel, but now I think of it more as a pipeline than a funnel, because if I don't know if there's to me there is only one warm waters halt that works. There may be hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of warm waters, but there's only one that leads you down that funnel to where the blaze resides.
Yeah, I guess I look at, you just look at the big picture, and that's warm waters halt, and that's going to make a big circle around Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the hot waters or warm waters. So that's my waters, and say that's the waters, the warm waters halt.
Mm-hmm.
It's an area that big. When you go down the canyon, it gets narrower with the next clue, and narrower with the next clue, and it doesn't have to be a specific where he did his skinny dipping or where.
Yeah.
My thoughts. That's all.
Nice thoughts. Thank you for calling in and sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate it.
Now, what happens with this now? Does that get I assume not recorded or anything, but
You mean this show?
notes?
This show?
Well, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, this program.
Whatever, on the shore, not.
Yeah, YouTube will process it, and it'll be it turns from a live stream into a recording, and anybody can watch it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure. Yeah,
Pardon me?
well, thank you.
My pleasure. You have a good day.
Enjoy the day.
You too.
So we got a super chat.
Who did we get a
Jeff?
super chat from?
Jeff Anschultz.
Oh,
Jan Schultz.
Jan Schultz. Hey, Jan. Jeff, thank you very much.
Happy with the program. And Sam Leno wants to know if we're going to share all of our solutions. Yes, Sam, on Wednesdays at 1, we'll be sharing all of our solutions one at a time.
Yeah.
Until we run through all of what we have.
So there'll be a couple, like Cimarron. We were at Cimarron several times. We were up in Pilar several times. We spent 5 days at Lander, so we won't do that 5 times. We'll just do it once and give you a sense of what we thought about. And again, I'll share the photographs in the description. We took photos at every one of them. And in some cases, we made videos about them. So we'll share all that content when we actually provide the solution. Yep.
Theory. It's not a solution if you don't find the treasure, right?
Exactly.
It's a theory, and then you go check it out, and then you don't find anything, and then you have that walk of shame.
Boom, and you blow that theory apart.
Famous Treasures says, AGK, help with geography, please. Are the plateau areas considered r/mountainous areas, such as Ojo Caliente, such as your mentioned theory?
Yeah, so the problem with that is once you get into, so the plateaus in New Mexico are the result of activity that took place literally hundreds of millions of years ago when we were an ocean. And they're not, you don't find many plateaus. I'm not sure you could say that you find plateaus anywhere in the Rocky Mountains. Once you're in the plateaus, you're in the high desert, and that tends not to be the Rocky Mountains. So there are plateaus there, as you probably know. There's a very nice plateau above Ojo Caliente in New Mexico, and there was a native. It's actually tribal property because there was a Native American pueblo up there at one time, and it's just not in the Rocky Mountains. I mean, the Rocky Mountains are very distinct. in terms of their structure and in terms of the vegetation and things like that. And plateaus don't remind me at all of
So
that.
Wichita 6 wants to know what kind of trees were in the Chama area, the Lake Vato area. As you can see here, this is a picture that Jason took of Toby up in the Chama area. So you can see the surrounding trees. What are you seeing here?
So you're seeing everything from mesquite to pinon to
Pine?
ponderosa pine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's down because we're looking at an area that's in the wilderness area called Navajo Peak. You can see it on the map. And we trekked down into the river valley at that point. We found some great things. Take a look at the pictures that in the link that I put.
And somebody asked about the videos. He said the videos weren't playing either.
No,
So-
it's because I used a tool. There was a tool that I used called Gallery Maker in order to do all the. And you got to remember the YouTube videos. The videos on there are simply copied over from our. They're not copied. You're actually going to our YouTube channel, so you can find them on our YouTube channel if you can't find them there. But yeah, I've got to get back. I've got to spend some time with that. I've let our blog go since we're not using it as much anymore. But I do want to keep the gypsieskiss.com URL for it. So I'll get that fixed when I get
So
some time.
Jeff wants to know, can't see the fishing regs. I mean, where does the warm water start? Halt, which end?
Hang on.
Warm waters, according to the fishing regulations, includes lakes. So El Vato would be considered warm waters because it's a lake.
I'll answer your question here in just a little bit more detail in just a second. Hey, you've reached Shelley and Toby. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And what's your question? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hi. Do us
Who
a
is it?
favor. This is Toby. You need to turn off the audio on your computer, otherwise it's going to be confusing for you.
It is off.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So
Okay.
what's your question?
And Shelley, okay. My question is, do you think, well, I've actually seen this in the chat room a few times and people kind of ignore it, but do you think that possibly, I don't know where Warm Waters Halt is, number one, but from Warm Waters Halt, everything could be visionary?
So I would. So that puts a layer on the poem that makes it. So there have been tens of thousands of people looking at this poem now for over 9 years, right?
True.
And there are two things that I can almost be assured of. One is that he didn't bury his treasure, because that changes the problem by an order of magnitude. Now, not only do I have 1.5 million square miles to look at, now I've got to look 3 or 4 feet into the ground, right? So it changes that. The other thing is that if the poem doesn't represent physical objects, that is, objects I can see with my own eyes, then he's made it even harder by probably a couple of orders of magnitude. If you have to imagine what the clues are, right, rather than being able to put your hands on those clues, I can step on the point at which, in the theory that I described today, I can stand below the home of Brown. I can mark where Warm Waters Halt on the Rio Chama River. But if it gets to the point where you've now gone from the physical to the visionary or the metaphysical, I think this poem will. I'll change it.
I think you've got me wrong.
All right.
Toby.
Well, tell
What
me.
I'm saying is, when you're standing at where Warm Waters Halt,
Yes.
and you're looking, when I say visionary, I'm saying looking, sight.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking in the canyon down,
Yes.
okay? And if you follow the clues, you're looking in the canyon down.
Yes.
And this is why the 200 and 500 feet thing is kind of always not always bothers me, it kind of bothers me, walking past the other 7 clues.
Right.
Well, you shouldn't have left where Warm Waters Halt. You're standing looking at that picture behind you right now.
Yeah.
Is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And once you see, let's just say, once you see the blaze from there, you look quickly down, possibly, and there's the home of Brown. What I'm saying is, let's just say, this is just for example, he parked his car at the home of Brown, walked in, out to the blaze.
Yeah.
Got his car and left. Well, you can see all of this, and here's the thing. Once you look back up, you're looking back up where you started at Warm Waters Halt.
All right, let me stop you right there because I've got to get close to ending the show. Sure. I agree with you. When you said, I thought visionary, you meant the metaphysical. I believe that you can see clue 5 while you're standing, or get a sense of clue 5 when you're standing at clue 4. I agree with you.
Okay.
I think the clues have to be, in order for this to be solved, we believe that the clues have to be visually connected in some way. Otherwise, you just do a whole bunch of wandering around the forest. So yes,
exactly.
I agree with you.
I believe you can see all 9 clues from where Warm Waters Halt. You might have to take 10 steps this way.
Yeah.
Look down here. Look this way. But at a certain point, like I say, from where Warm Waters Halt, you get out your binoculars and you unscrew them and take a little swig. And I'm just kidding. But
I used to have one of them. I actually know what you're talking about.
And you actually see the blaze.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It could be, and let's just say this too, it could be a quarter mile away.
I agree with you.
And that is, you don't leave Warm Waters Halt until you found the blaze.
Well, I think you can leave Warm Waters Halt expecting that you're looking for the home of Brown or no place for the meek, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But I believe that the distance that you're talking about is so small that you can visually connect one clue to the next. I agree with you. I'm gonna have to hang up because I got to get going.
Only could be 400. That's only 440 yards.
I agree with you. Yeah. That space that I was showing today on the map is under 500 yards.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Right.
Thanks for calling in. We agree.
Right.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, phone lines are off. What's happening next?
Well, in between right now and this evening's show, be sure to send us an email or a text or a voicemail, and we will talk about it on tonight's show at 7 o'clock on our Hump Day Hoedown. We appreciate you being here today with all of your great comments and questions. Kept our things a-going. And Joel does want to know if we're tempted to go back and look at Chama. I'm tempted because I haven't seen it. And I like being in the outdoors, and it would give us an excuse to go. Yet, we're not really looking for the treasure because we're kind of like, it's not there. So
here's what I do. I'm always looking for an excuse to get drone shots to populate the walls of my new house because that's what I'm going to do. So maybe we'll take a weekend trip down up to the Rio Chama, get some drone shots, and maybe we'll get some drone shots of this particular area for you. But
that would be fun.
Yeah.
Looks pretty up there.
It's beautiful up there.
So, yeah.
And the Chama is running, as I understand it, I looked at the gauging data, and the Chama is running very high this year. So who knows, that little suspension bridge that I showed you might be completely underwater.
And if
Jason
you want to be added
Younis
to our list
in the room.
I'm going to find the treasure and get it this summer and bring it home, let us know that you want to be on the list and what month you're going to bring home the treasure. And we're going to be checking in with people every month to see how you're doing on your progress.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
That was for Johnito.
All right.
He wants it. Okay, phone lines are off. We've got to get going. We will see you tonight at 7 when we have a more open show. We got text messages, voicemails from George. We got some emails that we got to read, and we'll do that all tonight. We got a 2-hour show tonight. I got to get to the doctor's appointment because the VA gets mad when you don't make your appointments.
Yeah. And I got grocery shopping to do.
Okay.
So, yeah. So thanks for being here today. And for AGK Media, I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Younis. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you tonight at 7 p.m.